Imagine for a moment that you were the most powerful pharaoh on earth, that your power was unquestionable, your wealth incalculable, and your word, law. Now, imagine that even with all this splendor, your life was marked by an incurable illness, a cursed lineage, and a tragic fate that would lead you to an early death before the age of 20. And the most shocking part, that after your departure, your name would be erased from history, your monuments vandalized, and your very existence banished from the memory of an empire you once ruled. Sounds like a dark legend, doesn't it? One of those ancient tales we tell around a campfire. But what if I told you that this isn't a legend at all, but the real story of one of Egypt's most famous pharaohs? For centuries, the name of Tutankhamun was a forgotten whisper in the sands of time, a ghost amidst the glory of Ramses and Cleopatra. It was believed that his reign was as brief as it was insignificant, and that his legacy would be lost forever. But what if the greatest irrelevance in a king's life was, in fact, the key to his immortality, and to the revelation of the deepest secrets of one of history's greatest civilizations? Prepare to uncover the truth behind the golden mask. Forget what you think you know about the pharaoh's curse or the treasures of a boy king. We are about to delve into a past of intrigue, heresy, and a desperate struggle for power, revealing not only the surprising reality of Tutankhamun's life, but also the science that unearthed his mysteries and the legacy he left us. You will discover that the real reward lies not in the gold, but in the knowledge that shatters paradigms and reconstructs history. And the great curiosity I bring you, what truly led to his death at such a young age? And why did his tomb, unlike all others, remain untouched for millennia? The answer is not what you expect. If you're ready to uncover these and many other revelations about the boy Pharaoh, please hit the like button on this video and share it with anyone who needs to hear this astonishing story. Your support helps us continue bringing the past to light. And to ensure you don't miss any of our historical investigations, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Tell us in the comments, from what part of the world are you joining us on this journey through ancient Egypt? To grasp the saga of Tutankhamun, one must first transport oneself to the setting of his time, a period of splendor and transformation at the heart of a millennia-old civilization. We are in the New Kingdom, an era that stretched from approximately 1550 BC to 1070 BC, and which is considered by many to be the zenith of Egyptian power and glory. Imagine an empire that extended from the Nile's cataracts in the south to the Euphrates in the Near East, boasting a wealth and influence few kingdoms in history could match. This was not merely a period of vast military conquests and territorial expansion, but also a time of cultural effervescence, of colossal temple building, and of flourishing arts. Kings like Thutmose III and Amenhotep III had paved the way for a dominant Egypt, with a complex bureaucracy, a formidable army, and a powerful priestly caste that revered a complex and deeply rooted pantheon of gods. At the core of this society stood the pharaoh, not merely an earthly ruler, but a living god, the embodiment of Horus, the mediator between the divine and the mortal. His word was law, and his authority unquestionable. The Egyptians lived in a universe where the afterlife was as tangible as life itself. With each sunrise, they saw the promise of rebirth, and with each sunset, the sun's journey through the underworld, preparing it for a new dawn. Funeral rituals, mummification, and the construction of elaborate tombs were more than mere traditions. They were the guarantee of immortality, the bridge to the field of reeds, where the soul would find eternal peace. The Nile, with its annual floods, was the vital pulse of this civilization, fertilizing the land and feeding the populace, a symbol of constant renewal and divine order. It is against this backdrop of opulence, unwavering belief, and unparalleled might that Tutankhamun's story unfolds. He inherited an empire at the peak of its grandeur, but also at the epicenter of an unprecedented religious and political crisis, triggered by his father's actions. The New Kingdom was a tapestry of contrasts: the grandeur of Karnak and Luxor temples, the splendor of royal treasures, and the complexity of a faith that permeated every aspect of life. Yet behind all this magnificence loomed the shadows of palace intrigues, power struggles, and beliefs that for a brief moment were shaken to their foundations. The atmosphere was charged with omens, with whispers of change, and with a destiny that awaited a young pharaoh, still unknown to the world, in his brief yet immortal reign. Among the revered names of Egypt's great pharaohs, kings who erected imperishable monuments and forged empires with sword and diplomacy, the name Tutankhamun resonated for centuries as a mere echo, almost inaudible. For a long time, he was little more than a footnote in the vast Egyptian chronicle, a pharaoh of minor importance, overshadowed by his predecessors and successors. His reign was as ephemeral as a flash of lightning in the desert, barely 10 years, beginning when he was still a child. In comparison to the monumental reign of Ramses II, which lasted over 60 years, or the military genius of Thutmose III, Tutankhamun's rule seemed insignificant, devoid of grand military campaigns or constructions that rivaled the wonders of Karnak. However, history's irony is that despite his apparent irrelevance in life, Tutankhamun would, by a peculiar twist of fate, become the most famous pharaoh of all time. His importance would not lie in the accomplishments of his short reign, but in how he was brought back into the light. Like a phoenix rising from the ashes, his fame would emerge not from the splendor of his rule, but from the silence of his tomb, untouched for over 3 millennia. His story proves that at times an individual's destiny is sealed not by their own actions, but by the circumstances surrounding them, and by the way chance intervenes. He was the heir to a complex and troubled lineage, born into a period of religious and political turmoil, the son of a heretical pharaoh, Akhenaten, who dared to defy millennia of religious tradition in favor of a monotheistic cult to the god Aten. Tutankhamun would be the instrument of restoration, the link returning to the ancient order. His initially discreet figure would transform into the symbol of an era, the face of ancient Egypt for the modern world. He did not rule with the force of a conqueror, but with the quietude of a restorer, guided by regents and counselors who shaped his brief time on the throne. His life was a mystery, his death an enigma, and his legacy a surprising revelation. Who then was this young pharaoh whom history almost forgot, but whom destiny transformed into an eternal icon? A thin morning mist on November 4th, 1922, hung over the Valley of the Kings, Egypt, a sacred place where generations of pharaohs had been laid to rest on their journey to eternity. An ancient silence broken only by the rhythmic sound of a pickaxe on rocky ground was the soundtrack to an incessant quest. For years, British archaeologist Howard Carter had scoured those sands, financed by the eccentric Lord Carnarvon, on a hunt that many considered futile. The most important tombs had already been discovered, or so it was thought. Hope was beginning to wane, and funding to dry up. It was a race against time, against skepticism, and against the sheer immensity of history itself. But, as in the most epic sagas, destiny wove its web that day. A small step, then another, emerging from the earth beneath the remains of ancient workmen's huts. Excitement grew with each shovel, each careful removal of the debris that covered what appeared to be a descending staircase. It wasn't long before Carter stood before a sealed doorway, intact, bearing the royal seals of Tutankhamun, a name that he and the world would soon come to know in vivid detail. That seal, once broken, would not just open a door to a tomb, but a window to a past that seemed to have been swallowed by time. The message to Lord Carnarvon was succinct and charged with restrained emotion. At last have made wonderful discovery in Valley, a magnificent tomb with seals intact, recovered until your arrival. Congratulations. News of the discovery of Pharaoh Tutankhamun's intact tomb reverberated across the planet like thunder. Newspapers worldwide ran sensational headlines, fueling popular imagination with visions of unimaginable treasures and ancient mysteries. The era of romantic archaeology, with its explorations and unveilings, reached its climax. For the first time in modern history, the tomb of an Egyptian pharaoh was found with its treasures virtually untouched, not plundered by tomb robbers or damaged by the ravages of time. It was as if the pharaoh himself had awakened, revealing himself to the world after millennia of slumber. Carter's discovery was not just a triumph of archaeology, it was a global cultural phenomenon. It reignited passion for ancient Egypt, inspired films, books, and songs, and transformed a forgotten king into a universal legend whose golden gleam continues to enchant and intrigue to this day. The world paused to watch as the veils of eternity were slowly lifted, revealing secrets guarded for over 30 centuries. With the opening of Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922, a wave of fascination and mystery swept the world. But along with the euphoria of the discovery, a sinister narrative quickly captured the popular imagination: the Pharaoh's curse. Ancient Egyptian tales already warned of the god's wrath against those who dared disturb the slumber of royal dead. The legend swiftly manifested in a series of tragic events that followed the tomb's opening, fueling fear and speculation. The first and most notorious case was the death of Lord Carnarvon, the expedition's financier, just 5 months after entering the burial chamber. An infected mosquito bite on his face, which he apparently nicked while shaving, led to a fatal infection. However, the most chilling detail was that a mark in the same spot on Tutankhamun's mummy's face was purportedly discovered, as if the pharaoh, from his eternity, had marked his intruder. From that moment on, a series of deaths and strange incidents followed among the team members who participated in opening the tomb, or had direct contact with the artifacts. Arthur Mace, one of the team's draftsmen, died shortly after Carnarvon. George J. Gould, an American friend of Carnarvon who visited the tomb, succumbed to sudden pneumonia. Even Carter's pet canary was supposedly devoured by a cobra, a symbol of Egyptian royalty. The sensationalist press, eager for stories that could rival the grandeur of the discovery, eagerly embraced the idea of an ancient curse, weaving a web of mystery and fatality that reverberated across the globe. The Egyptians, in turn, saw in the sequence of events a confirmation of their ancestral beliefs in divine retribution. However, for skeptics and for science, the curse was little more than coincidence and mass hysteria. Doctors and scientists pointed to more mundane causes. The millennia-old dust inside the tomb could have contained dormant fungi or bacteria, respiratory pathogens that could affect individuals with compromised immune systems, as was the case with Lord Carnarvon, who already suffered from health problems. Furthermore, the excitement and stress of the discovery, combined with the unsanitary conditions of the era, could have contributed to the worsening of pre-existing diseases. Howard Carter, the man who spent the most time inside the tomb, and who supposedly should have been the curse's main target, lived for another 17 years after the discovery, dying in 1939 of natural causes. The Pharaoh's curse, therefore, is a fascinating case study on the intersection of myth, superstition, and reality, a vivid reminder of how the human mind seeks meaning in seemingly random events, and how legends can take on a life of their own, even in the face of cold logic. The history of Egypt is replete with pharaohs who ascended the throne at a young age, but Tutankhamun's trajectory is particularly unique, shrouded in a mist of uncertainties and palace intrigues that preceded his coronation. He rose to power at merely 9 years old, a boy in a world of colossal responsibilities, inheriting not only an empire, but also the troubled legacy of his father, Akhenaten, the heretic pharaoh. Tutankhamun's ascent was not a smooth transition. It was a strategic move, a political maneuver carefully orchestrated by those who held the real power behind the scenes. The death of Akhenaten, and the subsequent disappearance of Queen Nefertiti, and his direct successor, Smenkhkare, created a power vacuum that needed to be filled, and a young, malleable prince was the ideal solution for the powerful priests and military officials who wished to restore traditional religious and political order. Egypt, under Akhenaten, had been turned upside down. The cult of Amun, which for centuries had been the cornerstone of Egyptian faith, had been brutally suppressed in favor of a monotheism dedicated to Aten, the sun disk. Temples were closed, priests dismissed, and the capital moved from Thebes, the center of Amun worship, to a new city he founded in the desert, Akhetaten, horizon of Aten, today known as Amarna. There he built open-air temples dedicated to Aten, without roofs, allowing sunlight to enter freely. The wealth of Amun's temples was confiscated, its priests deposed, and Amun's names erased from monuments throughout Egypt. Art also underwent a radical transformation, breaking with millennia-old conventions and introducing a more naturalistic and expressive style, with representations of the pharaoh himself and his family, in intimate poses and even with exaggerated physical features, such as elongated faces and prominent bellies. Despite his revolutionary vision, Akhenaten's monotheism was imposed from above and did not resonate with the populace, who were deeply rooted in polytheistic traditions. The powerful and influential priests of Amun secretly resisted the new faith, and the population, accustomed to familiar rituals and deities, likely felt disoriented and even abandoned by their old gods. Amarna's isolation from the traditional political and religious life of Thebes also generated instability and resentment. Akhenaten's reign was a period of chaos and fragmentation, a drastic break from the established order. With Akhenaten's death, his dream of a monotheistic Egypt crumbled. The power vacuum and widespread dissatisfaction opened the way for the return to the old faith. Young Tutankhamun, born Tutankhaten, was the perfect instrument for this reversal. The legacy of Amarna, with its peculiar art and radical theology, was systematically erased from Egyptian memory, and Akhenaten's name excised from records. But, as modern discoveries would reveal, the heretic pharaoh and his revolutionary sun city would never be truly forgotten, remaining a testament to the boldness of a king who dared to defy the gods and time. For a long time, Tutankhamun's parentage was one of Egyptology's greatest enigmas, a missing piece in the intricate puzzle of the 18th dynasty. Ancient texts were ambiguous, references sparse, and the very attempt to erase his father Akhenaten's memory from historical record made the task even more challenging. Popular belief for decades identified him as the son of Akhenaten and Nefertiti, the enigmatic and beautiful queen who ruled alongside the heretic pharaoh. However, scientific advancements through technologies like DNA analysis and CT scans unraveled the true web of family relations, revealing a more complex and, at times, shocking lineage. In 2010, a groundbreaking DNA study, conducted on royal mummies in Egypt, confirmed what many historians had already suspected. Tutankhamun was indeed the son of Akhenaten. The most surprising revelation, however, was that his mother was not Nefertiti, but rather a sister of Akhenaten, whose name remains unknown and whose mummy is identified as the Younger Lady, KV35YL. This discovery confirmed the practice, common among Egyptian royal dynasties but still impactful, of consanguineous marriages, where siblings united to preserve the purity of the royal lineage and the pharaoh's divinity. This consanguinity, as we shall see, would have profound implications for the young king's health. The family web extends further. Nefertiti is believed to have been his stepmother, not his biological mother, although her influence in the Amarna court and in Tutankhamun's life was undeniable. The mummy of Queen Tiye, Tutankhamun's grandmother, and Akhenaten's mother, was also identified, further solidifying the genetic connections. This complex network of blood and political relations painted a vivid picture of the alliances and power dynamics within the royal family. The 18th dynasty, despite its splendor, was permeated by internal dramas, ambitions, and, as Akhenaten's story would prove, by radical ruptures. Understanding Tutankhamun's parentage is crucial to comprehending not only his weakened health, but also the context in which he ascended to power. He was the last direct link of a lineage that had dared to defy gods and traditions, and his return to religious orthodoxy would be an act of restoring a shattered order. The secrets of his family tree, finally unveiled by science, revealed not only blood ties but also the scars of an era of profound transformations, where the fate of an empire rested on the shoulders of a young king, heir to a legacy as glorious as it was controversial. Amidst the splendor of the new kingdom, when the cult of the ancient gods, especially Amun, was at the height of its power and wealth, a singular figure emerged to challenge millennia of tradition, Pharaoh Amenhotep IV, who would later rename himself Akhenaten. His ascent to the throne marked the beginning of one of the most controversial and revolutionary periods in Egyptian history, known as the Amarna period. Akhenaten, a king distinguished by his peculiar physical appearance, innovative artistic ideals, and above all his religious audacity, dared to proclaim a new supreme god, Aten, the sun disk. He was not just another deity in the vast Egyptian pantheon. Aten would be the one true god, a universal and invisible entity, manifesting through sunlight. This was no mere religious reform. It was a true revolution. Akhenaten not only elevated Aten above all other gods, but also moved the capital from Thebes, the center of Amun worship, to a new city he founded in the desert, Akhetaten, Horizon of Aten, known today as Amarna. There he built open-air temples dedicated to Aten, without roofs, allowing sunlight to enter freely. The wealth of Amun's temples was confiscated, its priests dismissed, and Amun's names erased from monuments throughout Egypt. Art also underwent a radical transformation, breaking with millennia-old conventions and introducing a more naturalistic and expressive style, with representations of the pharaoh himself and his family in intimate poses, and even with exaggerated physical features, such as elongated faces and prominent bellies. Despite his revolutionary vision, Akhenaten's monotheism was imposed from above and did not resonate with the populace, who were deeply rooted in polytheistic traditions. The powerful and influential priests of Amun secretly resisted the new faith, and the population, accustomed to familiar rituals and deities, likely felt disoriented and even abandoned by their old gods. Amarna's isolation from the traditional political and religious life of Thebes also generated instability and resentment. Akhenaten's reign was a period of chaos and fragmentation, a drastic break from the established order. With Akhenaten's death, his dream of a monotheistic Egypt crumbled. The power vacuum and widespread dissatisfaction opened the way for the return to the old faith. Young Tutankhamun, born Tutankhaten, was the perfect instrument for this reversal. The legacy of Amarna, with its peculiar art and radical theology, was systematically erased from Egyptian memory, and Akhenaten's name excised from records. But as modern discoveries would reveal, the heretic pharaoh and his revolutionary sun city would never be truly forgotten, remaining a testament to the boldness of a king who dared to defy the gods and time. With the death of Akhenaten and the subsequent decline of the Aten cult, Egypt found itself once again in a state of religious and political upheaval. The Amarna revolution had failed in its intentions to firmly root a rigid monotheism in the people's consciousness, and the powerful priestly caste of Amun, which had been systematically stripped of its power and wealth, now saw an opportunity to restore the old order. It was in this scenario that the young Tutankhamun, initially known as Tutankhaten, became the central figure of a religious counter-revolution. At 9 years old, he was the perfect link between a troubled past and a future that promised a return to tradition. His name changed from Tutankhaten, the living image of Aten, to Tutankhamun, the living image of Amun, was more than a mere rebaptism. It was a political and theological declaration, an official announcement that the ancient gods were back. The monuments of Amarna, the sun city built by Akhenaten, were abandoned, and the royal court returned to the ancient capital of Thebes, the heart of Amun worship. The temples that had been closed or vandalized under Akhenaten's reign were restored and reopened, and the priests of Amun, with their vast influence and complex rituals, were reinstated in their positions of power. Statues of the gods previously destroyed or hidden were recovered and reintegrated into their sanctuaries. One of the most important documents attesting to this restoration is the Restoration Stela, discovered in Karnak. This text, though signed in Tutankhamun's name, details the religious reforms undertaken by his regents, describing Egypt's desolate state under Akhenaten and the subsequent restoration of the gods and their temples, stating that the land was in disorder, the gods had abandoned this land. The restitution of the cult of Amun and other traditional gods was not merely an act of faith. It was a crucial political strategy to stabilize the empire. Devotion to the gods was the foundation of social cohesion and the pharaoh's legitimacy. By realigning with ancestral beliefs, Tutankhamun, or rather his counselors, sought to appease the populace and the powerful religious elite, ensuring internal peace and prosperity. The religious life of Egypt flourished anew, with the celebration of festivals and rituals that had been suppressed, and the construction and restoration of temples throughout the kingdom. Although the young pharaoh was the face of this restoration, the true forces behind this change were his regents, especially Ai and Horemheb, who saw in religion a tool to consolidate their own power and restore order. Tutankhamun's reign, though short, was a vital transitional period, a turning point that marked the end of the Amarna turmoil and the return to a tradition that would endure for millennia. The image of the young king, restoring the gods and temples, was carefully constructed to solidify his legitimacy and erase the vestiges of a past that the Egyptian elite preferred to forget. Egypt, finally, was back to its gods, and Tutankhamun was their herald. While young Tutankhamun ascended the throne, his tender age and the complexity of the Egyptian political and religious landscape demanded the presence of experienced figures to guide the empire's course. Behind the scenes of power, two prominent figures emerged as the true architects of the kingdom's decisions and policies: Ai and Horemheb. Their influences were so profound that one could argue that, in essence, they governed Egypt during Tutankhamun's brief reign, shaping its domestic and foreign policy and, crucially, orchestrating the post-Amarna religious restoration. Ai was an elder statesman, a cunning vizier and a longtime counselor to the royal family, serving both Amenhotep III and Akhenaten. His presence at court was constant, and his influence unquestionable. He was a master of diplomacy and politics, with vast experience in the intricate workings of Egyptian government. While his exact origins are debated, some suggest he may have been related to Tiye, Akhenaten's mother, which would have granted him even greater prestige and access. Ai was the primary architect of the reversal of the Aten cult and the return to religious orthodoxy. His wisdom and ability to maneuver within the court made him an indispensable figure for stabilizing Egypt after the chaos of Amarna. He was the one who dictated the agenda, who advised the young pharaoh, and who, in fact, exercised the executive power of the kingdom. He was the mind behind the restoration, the man who whispered in the boy king's ear. Horemheb, on the other hand, represented military power. A charismatic and ambitious general, he had risen rapidly through the army ranks under Akhenaten. With Tutankhamun's ascent, Horemheb was appointed commander-in-chief of the army and overseer of all the king's works, accumulating immense power and the loyalty of the armed forces. While Ai handled internal and religious affairs, Horemheb ensured the security of Egypt's borders and internal order. He was the force, the arm that executed political decisions. His presence was a guarantee of military stability in a transitional period, and his ambition, a premonition of his own future on the throne. The relationship between Ai and Horemheb was a complex dance of power, cooperation, and likely rivalry. They shared the common goal of restoring Egypt's glory and erasing Akhenaten's legacy, but each with their own interests and ambitions. Their actions, though in Tutankhamun's name, laid the groundwork for the stability that would follow and, ironically, paved the way for one of them, Horemheb, to assume the throne after the young king's death and continue the work of eradicating Amarna's memory. These two men, Egypt's true regents, were the silent gears of a complex royal machinery, moving in the shadows, weaving the intrigues and strategies that shaped the destiny of an empire. If you're intrigued by the power struggles and enigmatic figures that shaped ancient Egypt, please give this video a like. Share it with your friends so more people can uncover these mysteries. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of our upcoming documentaries on history's greatest sagas. Help us spread knowledge and tell us in the comments, where are you watching this deep dive into the Egyptian past from? At the heart of the intricate web of relations and politics in the Egyptian court, the marriage of Tutankhamun to Ankhesenamun was not merely a union of political convenience, but a profound bond, marked by familial ties and, possibly, genuine affection. Ankhesenamun was his half-sister, daughter of Akhenaten and Nefertiti, which made her a pure-blooded royal princess and the ideal partner to legitimize the young pharaoh's reign. In a society where the pharaoh's divine lineage was paramount, union with a woman from his own family ensured the continuity of the royal bloodline's purity and strengthened the legitimacy of his ascension to the throne. Tutankhamun, whose original name was Tutankhamun, she lives for Aten, also had her name changed to reflect the restoration of the Amun cult. Just like Tutankhamun, this change symbolized the royal couple's commitment to reversing Akhenaten's religious reforms and embracing the ancient faith. Together, they would be the face of the new era, representing the stability and orthodoxy that Egypt so yearned for. Their images, found in various artifacts from Tutankhamun's tomb, portray them in moments of intimacy and tenderness, far from the rigid formality of traditional Egyptian art. These representations show the young couple exchanging flowers, receiving gifts, and even in poses suggesting mutual affection, which is rare for royal representations of the period, and humanizes their relationship in an unexpected way. The union of Tutankhamun and Ankhesenamun was more than a marriage. It was a strategy to consolidate the dynasty and appease the tensions resulting from the Amarna era. Ankhesenamun, as Nefertiti's daughter, brought with her the prestige and legitimacy of one of the most powerful queens in Egyptian history. Her presence alongside Tutankhamun reinforced the idea of continuity, even amidst the break with Akhenaten's legacy. She was the queen consort, the partner in government, and her role was fundamental in the pharaoh's ceremonial and political life. Unfortunately, the young royal couple's life was brief. Tutankhamun died prematurely, leaving Ankhesenamun a widow and without living heirs who could ensure the continuity of the lineage. After Tutankhamun's death, Ankhesenamun disappeared from historical records, and her final fate remains a mystery, one of the many enigmas surrounding the history of this dynasty. Their marriage, however, remains one of the best documented in Egyptian royalty, thanks to the treasures found in the tomb, which offer us a poignant glimpse into the life of a young king and his queen, united in an empire in transition, and whose love, however brief, is immortalized in the images of a distant past. In the heart of the Valley of the Kings, a labyrinth of tombs carved into the rock where the greatest pharaohs of the new kingdom had been laid to rest on their journey to eternity, lay a secret awaiting revelation. For over 3 millennia, Tomb KV62, shorthand for King's Valley Tomb number 62, was not one of the largest or most magnificent funerary constructions in the valley. On the contrary, its relative simplicity and its location, hidden beneath the remains of ancient workmen's huts, were the keys to its miraculous preservation. Unlike almost all other royal tombs, which were plundered and desecrated over the centuries, Tutankhamun's tomb remained untouched. A true time capsule, sealed against the voracity of robbers and the erosion of time. Imagine the emotion of Howard Carter and his team as they peered into the darkness, as they broke the seals of a door that no one had touched since the young king's funeral. The air inside the tomb, dense and stagnant, seemed to vibrate with the presence of a sleeping past. Upon entering, they did not find the disorder and emptiness characteristic of plundered tombs, but a scene that seemed to have been frozen in time. Unimaginable treasure, objects of gold and precious stones piled almost casually, gleaming in the lantern light, each telling a story of a royal life and the belief in eternity. The internal space of KV62 is relatively modest for a pharaoh, consisting of 4 main chambers: the antechamber, the annex, the burial chamber, and the treasury. Each of them, a universe of artifacts. The antechamber was the first contact with pharaonic wealth: funerary beds in the shape of animals, ornate chairs, chests, and boxes, all magnificently decorated. The smaller annex contained supplies and personal items, but it was the burial chamber, located deeper within, that revealed the pinnacle of wealth and mystery. Protected by 4 gilded wooden shrines, one inside the other like nested boxes, lay the red quartzite sarcophagus, guarding the pharaoh's 3 coffins, the innermost one of solid gold, and finally, Tutankhamun's mummy, adorned with the iconic golden mask. The treasury room, adjacent to the burial chamber, held the most precious and symbolic objects: statuettes of deities, boat models, jewelry, and the canopic jars containing the king's mummified organs. Tomb KV62 was not just a hiding place for riches. It was a material representation of Egyptian beliefs in the afterlife. Every object placed there had a purpose, a function in the pharaoh's journey to the field of reeds. Its discovery was not merely an archaeological find, it was the revelation of a complete burial ritual, an unprecedented glimpse into how the Egyptians prepared their kings for eternity. It remains the most spectacular archaeological discovery in history, an untouched window into the heart of a civilization that, through its rituals and art, sought to defy death itself. The sight that Howard Carter and Lord Carnarvon beheld as they peered into the darkness of tomb KV62 in 1922 was breathtaking, something that transcended the most fertile imagination. A golden glow emanating from the gloom, a profusion of glistening objects that seemed to defy the passage of over 30 centuries. Tutankhamun's tomb was not merely an archaeological find. It was a gold mine in its most literal sense, a testament to the incalculable wealth of ancient Egypt and the unwavering belief in a luxurious afterlife. Estimates suggest that over 5,000 artifacts were found, a number that in itself is dizzying, but which takes on epic proportions when we consider the artistic, historical, and, of course, material value of each piece. The pinnacle of this magnificence, without a doubt, is Tutankhamun's funerary mask. Made of solid gold and inlaid with lapis lazuli, quartz, obsidian, and other semi-precious stones, it is a masterpiece of ancient goldsmithing, an iconic symbol of Egypt and of royal death itself. Its eyes, made of quartz, seem to peer through time, while its serene countenance adorned with the uraeus cobra and the vulture, emblems of the power of Upper and Lower Egypt, captures the essence of pharaonic divinity. Weighing over 10 kilograms, its beauty and technical perfection are testaments to the mastery of Egyptian artisans. But the mask was just the beginning. The pharaoh was enclosed within a complex of sarcophagi, one inside the other, like Chinese boxes, each more richly decorated than the last. The outer sarcophagus, made of red quartzite, contained 3 anthropoid coffins, the first 2 of gilded wood, richly decorated with inlays of glass and stones. The third and most impressive, made entirely of solid gold, weighing over 110 kilograms, with the image of the pharaoh as Osiris, the god of the underworld, with crossed arms holding the crook and flail, symbols of his authority. Beyond these monumental treasures, the tomb revealed a vast array of personal and ceremonial objects that offer an intimate glimpse into the life of a pharaoh. Dazzling jewelry such as necklaces, bracelets, and rings, some with intricate designs of scarabs and protective symbols, amulets of all kinds, ensuring the king's safety on his journey to eternity, gilded statuettes of gods and goddesses, protectors of the deceased, richly carved furniture, such as thrones and ceremonial beds, weapons, such as bows and arrows, and dismantled chariots prepared for the pharaoh in his next life. The sheer amount of gold and precious stones was astounding, but the value of these treasures went far beyond the material. They were the tangible manifestation of a belief, the guarantee that the pharaoh would be surrounded by everything he needed for a prosperous eternal life. Tutankhamun's tomb was not merely a treasure, it was a portal to the soul of a civilization that viewed death not as an end, but as the beginning of a new and glorious existence. Beyond the dazzling gleam of gold and jewels, Tutankhamun's tomb revealed a series of curious and unexpected artifacts that, more than any grand treasure, offer us an intimate and surprising glimpse into the daily life of a pharaoh. These objects, many of them mundane in their function, make the young king more human, closer to us, demystifying the divine figure and showing that, behind the pomp and power, there was a boy with his peculiarities, his hobbies, and his needs. Far from formal and idealized representations, these items connect us with the person of Tutankhamun in a surprising way. Among the most intriguing finds, the large quantity of walking sticks and staffs is particularly revealing. Over 130 walking sticks were found in the tomb, some richly decorated, others simpler, many showing signs of use. This profusion strongly suggests that Tutankhamun had some difficulty with mobility and relied on these aids to walk. This evidence corroborates subsequent scientific analyses, which would reveal health problems and deformities in his feet, transforming the myth of the perfect pharaoh into a more complex and vulnerable reality. Each walking stick tells a silent story of pain and overcoming, a vivid reminder of human fragility. even for a living god. Other artifacts transport us to the more playful side of royal life. Several board games were found, such as the popular Senet and Mehen. Senet, a strategy game resembling Egyptian chess, was more than a pastime. It had religious connotations, symbolizing the soul's journey to the afterlife. The presence of these games in the tomb suggests that Tutankhamun enjoyed moments of leisure and distraction, perhaps with his wife Ankhesenamun or with his courtiers. Imagine the young king, amidst the gravity of his role, engaging in a game, the pieces sliding across the board as the sun set over the Nile. Bows, arrows, and a ceremonial shield were also discovered, indicating that Tutankhamun practiced hunting and archery, common activities for Egyptian nobility, both as sport and military training. Garments and sandals, some of pure gold, others of more common material, revealed details about royal attire. Even plant seeds and food items were found, prepared to nourish the pharaoh on his journey to eternity. These curious artifacts, in their apparent simplicity, offer remarkable depth to the figure of Tutankhamun. They show us the pharaoh not just as a divine and inaccessible being, but as a young man with his physical limitations, his leisure moments, and his preparations for the afterlife. They are fragments of daily life, pieces of a life that, even after millennia, still echoes in intimate details, allowing us to connect with the humanity behind the golden mask. Within tomb KV62, in its deepest heart, resided the burial chamber, the sacred sanctuary where the pharaoh's body was sealed for eternity. This was not merely a room, but a complex system of protection and symbolism, designed to safeguard Tutankhamun's mummy and ensure his successful passage to the field of reeds. Unlike the other chambers of the tomb, the burial chamber was the only one adorned with murals, depicting Tutankhamun being received by the gods, symbolizing his transition to the divine world. These paintings, vibrant in their colors and details, served as visual guides for the pharaoh's soul, illustrating the rituals and deities that would accompany him on his journey. The focal point of the chamber was the immense red quartzite sarcophagus, a monolithic piece that contained the king's multiple coffins. The stone, with a color evoking the setting sun and rebirth, was a symbol of protection and eternity. Around the sarcophagus, a spectacular sight unfolded. 4 gilded wooden shrines, one nestled inside the other, like a set of Russian dolls. The first, the largest, barely fit into the chamber, its sides decorated with intricate scenes of gods and protective symbols. Each shrine was an additional barrier against desecrators and a layer of security for the sacred mummy. The removal of each shrine by Carter and his team was a meticulous and time-consuming task, revealing the complexity of Egyptian funerary preparation. Inside the innermost shrine were the 3 anthropoid coffins. The 2 outer ones, made of wood covered with gold leaf and inlays of semi-precious stones and colored glass, represented the pharaoh in the form of Osiris, the god of the afterlife and rebirth. But it was the innermost coffin that caused the greatest sensation. Made of solid gold weighing over 110 kilograms, it was a masterpiece of wealth and art. The pharaoh was depicted with the crook and flail, symbols of royalty and divine authority, and his face was adorned with the famous funerary mask, a sight that would become iconic. The arrangement of goods in the chamber and the adjacent treasury was not random. It followed precise symbolism, reflecting Egyptian beliefs about the afterlife. Each object placed there had a purpose in the pharaoh's journey. The statuettes of guardian deities, tools for life in the hereafter, food to sustain the body and soul. The canopic jars, containing the king's mummified organs, stomach, intestines, lungs, and liver, were kept in an alabaster chest, protected by 4 statuettes of the goddesses Isis, Nephthys, Neith, and Selkut, the protectors of the jars. Tutankhamun's burial chamber was not merely a tomb. It was a miniature universe, a tangible representation of Egyptian cosmology, where death was just a transition to a glorious eternity, carefully orchestrated by gods and rituals. For the ancient Egyptians, death was not an end, but a transition to a new form of existence, a journey to the field of reeds, a kind of earthly paradise where the soul would find peace and abundance. This profound belief in the afterlife shaped every aspect of their civilization. and burial rituals were, perhaps, the most elaborate expression of this faith. For a pharaoh, a living god on earth, this passage was even more crucial, and preparation for eternity was a complex, meticulous process filled with symbolism. Tutankhamun's tomb, with its wealth of artifacts and the preservation of the king's body, offers an unprecedented glimpse into how these rituals were performed for the highest royalty. At the center of the process was mummification, an art that the Egyptians perfected over millennia. The primary goal was to preserve the body, the vessel for the Ka, life force, and the Bia, soul's personality, so that the soul could return to it in the afterlife. The process lasted 70 days, a period that mimicked astronomical cycles related to rebirth. First, internal organs were removed: brain, lungs, stomach, liver, and intestines, and mummified separately. The heart, considered the center of intelligence and emotions, was left in the body. The body was then covered with natron, a natural salt, to dehydrate it completely. After 40 days, the natron was removed, and the body was washed, anointed with perfumed oils and spices, and wrapped in hundreds of meters of linen bandages, often with protective amulets inserted between the layers. Each stage was accompanied by prayers and rituals conducted by specialized priests. The objects found in Tutankhamun's tomb were an integral part of these rituals. Amulets such as the Eye of Horus, the Ankh, symbol of life, and the scarab were placed on the body and in the bandages for protection against the dangers of the underworld. Statuettes of gods and goddesses like Osiris, Isis, and Nephthys served as protectors and guides on the pharaoh's journey. Food, drinks, and personal items, such as clothing and games, were provisions for life in the afterlife. The very configuration of the tomb, with its chambers and treasures, was a microcosm of the universe, a guarantee that the pharaoh would have everything he needed to live eternally. The culmination of the ritual was the opening of the mouth ceremony, performed at the sarcophagus after mummification. Priests ritually touched the mouth and eyes of the mummy and statues, symbolically restoring the deceased's ability to speak, see, hear, and eat in the afterlife. This was the assurance that the pharaoh would be complete and empowered for his new existence. Egyptian burial rituals were a testament to a civilization's profound belief in immortality, an art and a science that sought to defy death, transforming the earthly body into a vessel for a glorious eternal existence. The treasures from Tutankhamun's tomb, with their golden gleam and incalculable richness, are far more than mere precious objects. They represent a monumental legacy, a living and tangible link to a civilization that flourished and faded in the sands of time. The importance of these artifacts for understanding Egyptian culture is immeasurable, as they offer an unprecedented glimpse into a period that would otherwise be shrouded in speculation and fragments. Before Carter's discovery, most of our knowledge about ancient Egypt came from plundered monuments, religious texts, and isolated statues. Tutankhamun's tomb provided a complete context, an intact universe from an era. Every object, from the funerary mask to the king's sandals, is a capsule of information about the beliefs, rituals, art, technology, and daily life of the Egyptian elite during the New Kingdom. The wealth of the artifacts reveals the opulence of the pharaonic court, the mastery of artisans in working with gold, precious stones, and other materials, and the complexity of a hierarchical society. Personal objects such as walking sticks and games humanize the pharaoh, revealing details of his health and pastimes, making him more accessible and less a distant divine figure. The depictions of Tutankhamun and Ankhesenamun in scenes of intimacy and affection, for example, challenge notions of purely formal Egyptian art, showing surprising sensitivity and realism. The tomb is a three-dimensional encyclopedia of Egyptian mythology and religion. The murals in the burial chamber, the statuettes of gods and goddesses, the amulets and the funerary texts inscribed on the sarcophagi and walls, all offer a deep understanding of Egyptian beliefs in the afterlife, the soul's journey, and the role of the gods in this process. The organization of the goods within the tomb, with its careful symbolism, reflects Egyptian cosmology and the importance of each object in guaranteeing the pharaoh's immortality. Furthermore, Tutankhamun's artifacts hold invaluable significance for archaeological preservation and research. They allowed historians and archaeologists to reconstruct Egyptian funerary rituals with an unimaginable level of detail. Modern science, with DNA analysis and CT scans, has been able to extract even more information from these objects and the pharaoh's body itself, unraveling secrets about his health, lineage, and causes of death. The legacy of Tutankhamun's treasures is not limited to their beauty or material value. It lies in their ability to connect us with a distant past, to allow us to hear the whispers of a civilization that, through its rituals and art, sought immortality, and in their discovery found it. They are proof that history at times chooses its own messengers, and that a forgotten king can become the most eloquent of storytellers. The figure of Tutankhamun, immortalized by the golden mask, evokes the image of a powerful and perhaps invincible king. However, modern scientific analyses of his mummy have revealed a very different reality. That of a young king weakened by a series of illnesses and deformities, which made his life a constant challenge, and his death at 19 years old an almost inevitable event. The mystery surrounding his premature demise has always been one of the most intriguing aspects of his story, fueling speculations ranging from assassination to fatal accidents. Technology, however, has finally begun to unravel these enigmas, revealing a more complex and poignant picture of his health. Scientific analyses, such as computed tomography, CT scans, conducted in 2005, and DNA studies in 2010, were crucial to this new understanding. The CT images revealed intrinsic details of his bones and tissues, while DNA analyses confirmed his parentage and the presence of pathogens. One of the most significant discoveries was the evidence of multiple Tutankhamun's ailments. He suffered from a severe form of malaria, likely the Plasmodium falciparum strain, the most lethal. The malaria parasite's DNA was found in his bones, suggesting he had been repeatedly infected. Malaria, by itself, could have been a significant contributing factor to his weakened health and his death. In addition to malaria, analyses revealed the presence of bone necrosis, a painful condition that causes the death of bone tissue due to lack of blood supply. This severely affected one of his feet, specifically the left foot, which presented a deformity known as clubfoot, or talipes equinovarus, and severe limping. This condition explains the large number of walking sticks found in his tomb. He needed them to move around. Imagine a young king, with the entire weight of Egypt on his shoulders, struggling to walk, relying on aids for every step. This physical vulnerability dramatically contrasts with the idealized image of the pharaoh. The CT scan also suggested possible mild scoliosis, a curvature of the spine, which would further worsen his posture and locomotion. The hypothesis of a fall or accident was also raised. A fracture in his left leg, which appeared not to have healed properly, was observed. While it is unknown if the fracture resulted from a fall or a pre-existing condition that weakened the bone, it would certainly have been a source of pain and vulnerability. The debate surrounding Tutankhamun's causes of death, therefore, is multifaceted. Although the assassination hypothesis, popularized by films and books, has been largely dismissed by scientific evidence, the combination of severe malaria, bone necrosis in the foot, and an unhealed leg fracture possibly exacerbated by his consanguinity points to a death resulting from a series of medical complications. The pharaoh's enigma, once a mystery, is now a case study of life's fragility, even for those who rule an empire. Despite his short reign, devoid of the great military conquests or monumental constructions that marked the era of other pharaohs, Tutankhamun's name transcended time and the desert sands to become one of the most iconic and recognizable symbols of ancient Egypt. His image, dominated by the imposing golden mask, permeates popular culture, gracing museums, books, films, documentaries, and exhibitions worldwide. He became the face of ancient Egypt's mystery and wealth, a silent ambassador for a civilization millennia old. His fame does not stem from his rule, but from his extraordinary discovery, which elevated him to a level of immortality few other kings achieved. But why is Tutankhamun, an apparently insignificant pharaoh in life, so important to historians and to our understanding of ancient Egypt? The answer lies precisely in the fact that his tomb was found intact. It provided a unique and unprecedented window into the late 18th dynasty, a period of transition after the religious turmoil of Akhenaten. The wealth and variety of artifacts found in KV62 offer a complete overview of the burial rituals, religious beliefs, art, technology, and daily life of Egyptian royalty. For historians, it's like having access to a complete encyclopedia of an era, with details no other discovery had provided. The rescue of his memory, which had been systematically erased after the Amarna era, allowed for the reconstruction of a vital part of Egyptian history, filling gaps and connecting dots. Tutankhamun's presence in cinema and literature is a testament to his lasting impact on the collective imagination. From the frenzy of the Pharaoh's curse in the 1920s to modern Hollywood blockbusters and historical novels, Tutankhamun has been a recurring protagonist, a catalyst for narratives blending fact, fiction, and fantasy. Films like The Mummy and its various versions, and documentary series explore the mystique surrounding his tomb and life. His story is told and retold, adapted and reinterpreted, each time adding new layers to his legend. This global popularity, however, also carries with it the responsibility for protecting archaeological heritage. Tutankhamun's treasures are fragile and require constant conservation. Museums and archaeological institutions work tirelessly to preserve these finds for future generations, ensuring that the pharaoh's legacy remains accessible for study and admiration. And despite all that has been discovered, many open questions still persist about Tutankhamun and ancient Egypt. Details about his personal life, the true motivations behind certain political decisions, and the whereabouts of other treasures still await answers. Tutankhamun, the forgotten king who became immortal, continues to be a source of mystery, an invitation for new generations of archaeologists and historians to continue unraveling the secrets of an empire that, even after millennia, still has much to teach us. Our journey through the life and legacy of Tutankhamun has taken us through a tunnel of time, from the ancient sands of the Valley of the Kings to the most modern scientific analyses. We have seen how a young pharaoh, whose reign was brief and seemingly insignificant, became one of history's greatest icons, not for his achievements in life, but for the miracle of his discovery. His story is an eloquent reminder that the past is not dead. It lives in the artifacts we recover, the texts we decipher, and the questions we continue to ask. Tutankhamun, the boy king, is a testament to the grandeur of ancient Egypt, its profound beliefs in the afterlife, its sublime art, and its complex political intrigues. He teaches us that immortality can be achieved in unexpected ways, and that even the briefest of existences can leave an indelible mark on the tapestry of history. But what does the story of Tutankhamun, a king who lived over 3,000 years ago, have to tell us today? It reminds us of the ephemeral nature of power and the resilience of beliefs. The attempt to erase the legacy of Akhenaten and Tutankhamun demonstrates how ideologies can be volatile and how historical memory can be manipulated. However, the fact that Tutankhamun was rediscovered and had his name rescued shows that truth, at times, defies attempts at obliteration. His story is an invitation to reflect on our own mortality and on what we leave behind. The Egyptians dedicated their lives to preparing for eternity, a lesson on the importance of a legacy that transcends earthly life. Furthermore, the saga of his discovery and the controversies surrounding the curse teach us about human nature, our quest for mystery, and our tendency to mix facts with legends. The ongoing research into Tutankhamun and ancient Egypt is a reminder that knowledge is a never-ending journey. Each new discovery, each new technology applied, allows us to deepen our understanding of a past that continues to fascinate and teach us. Egypt, with its pyramids and pharaohs, is not just a chapter in a history book. It is an inexhaustible source of inspiration, an invitation to unravel the mysteries of civilization and of human existence itself. Tutankhamun's story, with its revelations and enigmas, is a beacon that illuminates the path to understanding our own journey, an echo of the past that powerfully resonates in the present, inviting us to continue exploring, questioning, and learning. If this millennia-old saga of mystery and discovery captivated you from beginning to end, and if you feel that the past has much to teach us, please like this video, and share it so more people can uncover these mysteries with us. And to continue this journey through time and not miss any of our upcoming documentaries, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Your support is crucial for us to bring you more epic stories like this one. Now, we want to hear from you. What is the most valuable lesson Tutankhamun's story taught you? Leave your comment below and join our community of past explorers. The image of Tutankhamun, especially his iconic funerary mask, has transcended Egypt's borders and the limits of archaeology to solidify as a global symbol of mystery, wealth, and antiquity. In a world where the past competes for attention with the present and future, the young pharaoh maintains a constant and vibrant presence in popular culture, becoming the most famous ambassador of a civilization that flourished millennia ago. He is not just a name in history books, but a figure inhabiting the collective imagination, present in museums, traveling exhibitions, documentaries, films, and even consumer products. The reason for this omnipresence largely lies in the spectacular nature of his discovery. The intact tomb, with its gleaming treasures, created an aura of fascination that no other archaeological excavation has managed to replicate. The pharaoh's curse, though scientifically unfounded, added an extra layer of drama and mysticism, fueling popular curiosity and transforming Tutankhamun into a modern myth. Exhibitions of Tutankhamun's artifacts, which traveled to various cities worldwide, such as London, Paris, New York, Los Angeles, and Tokyo, attracted millions of visitors, setting attendance records and reaffirming the universal appeal of Egyptian history. These exhibitions were not just displays of artifacts. They were mass cultural events that transported the public into the depths of the Valley of the Kings, allowing them direct contact with the magnificence of a pharaoh. The entertainment industry has embraced Tutankhamun with fervor. Numerous documentaries, produced by channels like National Geographic and History Channel, explore every facet of his life, death, and the discovery of his tomb, using the latest technological advancements to recreate his world and unravel his secrets. Fictional films, some loosely based on his story, others leveraging the mystique of the curse, ensure that the pharaoh continues to be a source of inspiration for screenwriters and directors. From the classic suspense of The Mummy to more recent productions, Tutankhamun is often portrayed as an enigmatic figure, sometimes cursed, sometimes at the center of a grand adventure. His image is frequently used in marketing and advertising, becoming an instantly recognizable visual icon. This constant presence in popular culture, however, also raises important questions about the responsibility of representation and preservation. Spectacularization can, at times, obscure the historical and archaeological depth of the finds, turning them into mere objects of curiosity. Nevertheless, it is undeniable that Tutankhamun's popularity plays a crucial role in educating and raising awareness about the importance of cultural heritage. By presenting the history of ancient Egypt in an accessible and engaging way, he inspires new generations of historians, archaeologists, and enthusiasts, ensuring that the millennia-old legacy of this civilization continues to be studied, protected, and revered. Tutankhamun, the king whom history almost forgot, shines brighter than ever today, a testament that immortality, at times, resides not in an empire's strength, but in a single story's ability to captivate humanity's imagination. To the casual observer, Tutankhamun's reign might seem like a mere footnote in the vast and glorious history of ancient Egypt. Just 10 years on the throne, with no grand military conquests to expand the empire's borders, nor colossal monuments to rival the temples of Karnak or the pyramids of Giza. However, for historians and Egyptologists, Tutankhamun's value is immeasurable, surpassing in many respects that of pharaohs whose reigns were longer and more celebrated in life. The reason for this importance lies not in what he did during his brief time in power, but in how his tomb was discovered and what it revealed. Tomb KV62, untouched by thieves and the passage of time, is an anomaly in the history of Egyptian archaeology. Practically all other royal tombs of the New Kingdom were systematically plundered in antiquity, emptied of their treasures, and consequently, of their richest historical contexts. Imagine trying to understand an entire library by reading only the book titles and a few torn pages. This was the situation for most studies of ancient Egypt. Tutankhamun's tomb, however, was found complete, a perfectly preserved snapshot of a royal burial ritual, a universe of artifacts that allows us to reconstruct with unprecedented detail the life at the Egyptian court, its beliefs, and its rituals. The more than 5,000 artifacts found in the tomb are not just museum pieces, they are primary sources of information. Through them, historians can understand Egyptian art in its entirety, from the most elaborate goldsmithing to everyday objects. They reveal the tastes, garments, games, and even the physical limitations of the pharaoh himself, humanizing the royal figure. The study of the materials used in the artifacts, the origin of the stones, metals, and woods, allows researchers to map trade routes and the extent of the Egyptian empire at the time. The very organization of the tomb and the placement of objects offer a deep dive into Egyptian cosmology, beliefs about the afterlife, and the complex journey of the soul. Crucially, Tutankhamun's tomb fills a vital gap in ancient Egyptian history, the period immediately following the Amarna era. Under his father, Akhenaten, Egypt underwent a radical religious and artistic revolution. Tutankhamun's tomb and the decrees of religious restoration issued in his name, such as the Restoration Stela, provide concrete evidence of the reversal of Akhenaten's policies and the return to religious orthodoxy. This allows us to understand how the Egyptian elite of the time dealt with the turbulences of the previous era and how balance was restored. The tomb is, therefore, a physical and visual document attesting to the complexity of political and religious transitions in ancient Egypt, making Tutankhamun, paradoxically, one of the most important, if not the most important, pharaoh for our understanding of this remarkable civilization. For many centuries, the transitional period of the 18th dynasty, specifically the years following Akhenaten's reign, remained shrouded in a mist of silence and obscurity in Egyptian history. Attempts to erase the heretic pharaoh's memory were so comprehensive that they extended, by association, to those who immediately succeeded him, including Tutankhamun. Monuments were demolished, names were scratched from records, and the city of Amarna itself was abandoned and systematically dismantled. The objective was clear: to eradicate Akhenaten's heresy and restore traditional order, acting as if those turbulent years had never existed. For historians, this resulted in a frustrating gap in knowledge. It was the discovery of Tutankhamun's intact tomb in 1922 that cast a powerful light on this once obscured era. Suddenly, a period that the ancient Egyptians attempted to erase from modern history was revealed in vivid detail. The very existence of Tutankhamun's tomb and the wealth of its artifacts proved to be an eloquent testament to the life and beliefs of a young king who was an integral part of the reversal of the Aten cult. The inscriptions, artifacts, and Tutankhamun's mummy itself provided concrete evidence to reconstruct the sequence of events and the policies that shaped post-Amarna Egypt. The rescue of Tutankhamun's memory, therefore, is synonymous with the rescue of an entire historical period. Without his tomb, we would have only fragments and assumptions about the complex transition from a radical monotheistic regime back to the ancient polytheistic religion. The objects found in the tomb show not only the wealth of Egypt at the time, but also the fusion of artistic and religious elements from the Amarna era with traditional styles. We see the process of reconciliation between the old and the new, the attempt to stabilize an empire that had been shaken to its foundations. Furthermore, the identification of Tutankhamun's parentage, his marriage to Ankhesenamun, and the presence of figures like Ai and Horemheb in his court, all corroborated by the tomb's findings, allowed historians to trace the lines of succession and the political intrigues of the time. The revelation that Tutankhamun was Akhenaten's son, for example, confirmed the deep family ties that united these rulers, despite attempts at erasure. The rescue of Tutankhamun's memory, therefore, is not just about a king. It is about the restoration of a vital chapter in Egyptian history, a period of profound changes and a struggle for religious and political identity. Tutankhamun's tomb, sealed by time, became the voice that cried out across millennia, revealing the secrets of an era that Egypt tried, unsuccessfully, to forget. The fascinating story of Tutankhamun, the aura of mystery surrounding his life and death, and the spectacular discovery of his tomb have transformed the young pharaoh into an inexhaustible source of inspiration for cinema and literature. From the early days of the discovery, when the pharaoh's curse made headlines, to the latest Hollywood productions and historical fiction bestsellers, Tutankhamun has been a recurring protagonist, a catalyst for narratives that blend fact, fiction, and fantasy. In literature, the impact was immediate and lasting. Novels exploring the curse, mysteries investigating the pharaoh's death, and fictional biographies filling the gaps of his short life flooded the market. Authors like Philip Vandenberg, The Curse of Tutankhamun, and Christian Jacques, The Egyptian, incorporated Tutankhamun's figure into their works, mixing historical elements with palace intrigues, ancient secrets, and, at times, a touch of the supernatural. These books not only entertained but also fueled public curiosity about ancient Egypt, popularizing the pharaoh's figure. Howard Carter himself published detailed accounts of his discovery, which became bestsellers, transporting readers inside the tomb and sharing the excitement of each revelation. In cinema and television, Tutankhamun found an even grander stage. The figure of the cursed mummy, resurrected to avenge the desecration of its tomb, became a recurring trope in horror and adventure. The film The Mummy, 1932, starring Boris Karloff and its many sequels and remakes, solidified the idea of the curse in popular imagination, albeit with little historical fidelity. More recently, big-budget productions and historical miniseries have attempted to approach Tutankhamun's story with greater accuracy. Documentary series such as those produced by National Geographic and Discovery Channel use dramatic reenactments and the latest scientific findings to present a more in-depth view of his life and his time. Tut, 2015, a television miniseries, sought to explore the court intrigues and the young pharaoh's personality. Even with some creative liberties, Tutankhamun's presence in these media reflects the universality of themes such as power, betrayal, love, death, and the quest for immortality. His story, rich in intriguing characters like Horemheb and Ankhesenamun, offers fertile ground for complex human dramas. The beauty and mystery of the artifacts from his tomb provide a stunning visual backdrop, perfect for the big screen. While artistic representations often deviate from historical accuracy in favor of drama and entertainment, they play a crucial role in keeping alive the flame of curiosity about ancient Egypt, inspiring generations to learn more about this fascinating civilization and about the king who, even after millennia, continues to be an eternal source of inspiration. The discovery of Tutankhamun's treasures in 1922 was a moment of global euphoria, but it also marked the beginning of a complex and ongoing struggle for the protection of Egyptian archaeological heritage. The fragility of the artifacts, the threat of looting, and the challenge of balancing public access with conservation transformed the management of these finds into a monumental task. The importance of conserving archaeological finds is not limited to their beauty or material value. It is crucial for future generations to be able to study and appreciate these irreplaceable fragments of the past, ensuring that knowledge and history are not lost forever. Since the time of the discovery, the conservation challenges have been immense. The very removal of the artifacts from the tomb, after more than 3 millennia in a sealed and stable environment, required extreme care. Wooden and textile objects, for example, were in such a fragile state that exposure to air and light threatened to destroy them. Howard Carter and his team, despite the technological limitations of the time, employed pioneering conservation methods, such as hardening objects with paraffin and using bandages to stabilize delicate structures. However, the flow of visitors to the tomb, and later to exhibitions, also raised concerns about humidity, dust, and contamination. Today, the conservation of Tutankhamun's heritage and all Egyptian treasures is a multidisciplinary science involving chemists, biologists, engineers, and historians. The artifacts are kept in controlled temperature and humidity environments in museums, protected from UV light and pollution. Tutankhamun's mask, for example, is kept in a climate-controlled display case at the Grand Egyptian Museum, GM, designed to be one of the most advanced conservation centers in the world. Moving pieces for exhibitions requires specialized packaging and strict transport conditions, with teams of conservators accompanying each step. Beyond natural threats and time, archaeological heritage faces the constant challenge of looting and the illegal trafficking of antiquities. The demand for Egyptian artifacts on the global black market is high, which drives the destruction of archaeological sites and the irreparable loss of historical information. Governments and international organizations, such as UNESCO, work to combat trafficking, promote the repatriation of stolen artifacts, and educate the public about the importance of ethical antiquities purchasing. Digitization and the creation of 3D models of artifacts are also important strategies, as they allow researchers and the public to access information without handling the original objects, minimizing wear and tear. The protection of Tutankhamun's legacy is an ongoing effort that reflects the recognition that these treasures are not merely the property of one country, but a heritage of humanity. By preserving the tomb and its finds, we ensure that the voices of the past, which once seemed silent, continue to speak to us, revealing the mysteries and grandeur of a civilization that, through its art and faith, sought immortality, and in its preservation, found it. Despite decades of intensive research, the most advanced scientific analyses, and the unprecedented wealth of his tomb, Tutankhamun's saga still holds a series of open questions, persistent mysteries that continue to intrigue historians, archaeologists, and the public alike. With each answer found, new inquiries arise, demonstrating that the past, however much we explore it, will always reserve secrets for future generations of researchers. These gaps in knowledge do not diminish the pharaoh's importance. On the contrary, they fuel curiosity and drive new investigations, keeping the flame of discovery alive. One of the greatest remaining enigmas concerns the fate of his wife, Tutankhamun. After Tutankhamun's death, she abruptly disappears from historical records. It is known that she wrote a letter to the Hittite king Suppiluliuma, asking for a son to marry, as she did not want to marry a servant, likely referring to Horemheb. This correspondence, discovered in the Amarna archives, suggests a desperation to maintain her autonomy and the royal lineage. The Hittite prince Zananza was sent to Egypt but was murdered on his journey. What was Tutankhamun's final fate? Was she forced to marry Ai, who became pharaoh shortly after Tutankhamun? Or was she simply marginalized and died in some ostracism, with her mummy yet to be identified? The whereabouts of her tomb and her remains are one of the great challenges of modern Egyptology. Another persistent question is the exact cause of Tutankhamun's death. Although scientific analyses have ruled out assassination by a blow to the head and pointed to a combination of malaria, bone necrosis, and a leg fracture, there is still debate about which factor was the final trigger. The leg fracture could have led to a fatal infection, or malaria, already in a weakened body, could have been the primary cause. The consanguinity of his parents may also have contributed to his fragile health, but the exact degree of impact on his death is still a subject of study and discussion. And what about the remains of Nefertiti, the enigmatic and beautiful queen, Tutankhamun's stepmother and Akhenaten's wife, disappeared from records after the Amarna era? Many believe her mummy is yet to be discovered, perhaps in a hidden chamber in Tutankhamun's tomb, as suggested by some radar analyses, or in another as yet undiscovered tomb in the Valley of the Kings, or near Amarna. The discovery of her mummy would be as revolutionary as Tutankhamun's, revealing details about her life, appearance, and ultimate fate. Finally, there is always the question of other undiscovered tombs in the Valley of the Kings and other Egyptian necropolises. Tutankhamun's discovery proved that even in seemingly exhausted sites, history still holds surprises. How many other important kings, queens, or nobles still await in the depths of the sand, their secrets waiting for a pickaxe or a radar to unveil them? Tutankhamun reminds us that ancient Egypt is a book with many pages yet to be turned, an eternal invitation to exploration and the tireless pursuit of knowledge. The saga of Tutankhamun is not just a story of excavations and treasures. It is also a remarkable testament to how modern technology has revolutionized archaeology and Egyptology, allowing the mysteries of a distant past to be unraveled with unprecedented precision and depth. While Howard Carter and his team achieved a monumental feat with the tools of their time, the innovations of the 21st century have opened a new chapter in understanding the boy pharaoh, transforming what were once mere speculations into facts based on scientific evidence. The revolution began with computed tomography, CT scan. In 2005, Tutankhamun's mummy underwent a series of CT scans, producing thousands of high-resolution images of his skeleton and tissues. This non-invasive technology allowed scientists to see inside the mummy without damaging it, revealing crucial details about his bone structure, his age at the time of death, and the condition of his body. It was through these images that the theory of a fatal blow to the head was dismissed, revealing that the hole in his skull was, in fact, a result of the mummification process. The CT scans confirmed the deformities in his feet, bone necrosis, and the fracture in his leg, painting a clearer picture of his debilitated health. But the real turning point came with DNA analysis. In 2010, an international team of researchers conducted genetic tests on bone samples from Tutankhamun and other mummies of the 18th dynasty. This was a paradigm shift, as the preservation of DNA in such ancient and hot conditions was considered an almost insurmountable challenge. The results were astounding. DNA confirmed that Tutankhamun was the son of Akhenaten and one of his sisters, the KV-35YL mummy. Furthermore, the presence of the malaria parasite, Plasmodium falciparum, was identified in his body, the strongest evidence yet of a specific disease that afflicted him and may have contributed to his death. DNA analysis not only revealed his parentage, but also offered insights into the royal family's health and the consequences of inbreeding. Other technologies have also contributed significantly. The use of ground-penetrating radar, GPR, and thermography has been employed in the search for hidden chambers in existing tombs, such as Tutankhamun's, in the hope of finding more secrets or, perhaps, Nefertiti's tomb. Photogrammetry and 3D scanning allow for the creation of precise digital models of artifacts and archaeological sites, enabling researchers worldwide to study them without the need to handle original pieces, minimizing wear. X-ray spectroscopy and X-ray fluorescence enable the chemical composition of pigments and metals in artifacts to be analyzed, revealing production techniques and material origins. Modern technology does not replace the arduous work of excavation, but enhances it, allowing archaeologists and historians to extract information that would be impossible to obtain with traditional methods. It offers us new lenses to look at the past, demystifying legends and revealing the complex reality behind Tutankhamun's figure, connecting millennia of history with the latest scientific innovations. The future of Egyptology is intrinsically linked to the advancement of these technologies, which promise to unlock even more secrets from the sands of Egypt. With the premature death of Tutankhamun at 19, Egypt once again found itself at a crossroads. The young pharaoh had been the instrument of the ancient god's restoration, and the last direct link of a royal lineage that had been stained by Akhenaten's heresy. With no living heirs to assume the throne and ensure a smooth succession, the power vacuum opened up again, and the stage was set for a struggle for power among the most influential figures at court. This post-Tutankhamun period is crucial for understanding the transition from the 18th dynasty to the next, how the empire sought stability, and how the memory of the Amarna era was definitively eradicated. The figure who quickly emerged to fill this void was I, the elderly and experienced vizier who had already served as regent during Tutankhamun's reign. He was a man of great influence, with deep ties to the royal family and the state bureaucracy. After the pharaoh's death, A ascended the throne, marrying Tutankhamun's widow, Ankhesenamun, in a maneuver aimed at legitimizing his reign and consolidating his position. However, his reign was brief, lasting only about 4 years. Although he continued the work of religious restoration, I left no significant mark in terms of constructions or military campaigns, and his legitimacy as pharaoh was, in a way, fragile, as he was not of direct royal lineage. Ankhesenamun's ultimate fate after this forced marriage remains a mystery. one of the many secrets of this transitional period. It was after A's death that the stage was set for the ascent of Horemheb, the charismatic and ambitious military general who had accumulated considerable power under Tutankhamun and I. Horemheb had no blood ties to the previous royal family, but his strength lay in the army's loyalty and his determination to restore Egypt's order and glory. He became pharaoh, marking a turning point in the 18th dynasty. His reign, which lasted over a decade, was characterized by a series of internal reforms, especially in the army and bureaucracy, and by a systematic campaign to erase the vestiges of the Amarna era. Horemheb not only demolished the Aten temples in Amarna and reused their stones in his own constructions, but also usurped the monuments of Tutankhamun and I, replacing their names with his own. He rewrote history, declaring himself the direct successor of Amenhotep III, skipping Akhenaten, Smenkhkare, Tutankhamun, and I from the list of legitimate pharaohs. This act of damnatio memoriae, condemnation of memory, was a deliberate attempt to eradicate any remembrance of the Amarnian period and to consolidate his own legitimacy. Horemheb was a strong and effective ruler who brought stability to Egypt after a period of turmoil. Although his ascent was marked by a power grab, he is credited with having prepared the ground for the glorious 19th dynasty, which would see pharaohs like Ramses II lead Egypt to new heights of power and influence. Post-Tutankhamun Egypt was a period of reconstruction and redefinition, where the shadow of Amarna was banished, and traditional order was re-established with an iron fist, under the leadership of a general who became pharaoh. The study of ancient Egypt, Egyptology, is a vibrant and constantly evolving field of research that continues to fascinate and attract curious minds worldwide. From the pioneering days of Champollion, who deciphered hieroglyphs, and adventurers like Belzoni, to Carter's discovery of Tutankhamun, Egyptology has always been synonymous with discovery and mystery. Today, it has transformed into a multidisciplinary discipline that integrates archaeology, history, linguistics, anthropology, conservation, and the most advanced scientific technologies, seeking not only to unearth but to deeply understand one of history's most complex and enduring civilizations. The continuities in the field are evident. The search for new tombs and archaeological sites continues, albeit with much more sophisticated and less invasive methods. Egyptologists still dedicate themselves to excavating, recording, and analyzing, but the focus has shifted from mere finds to a more holistic understanding of cultural and social contexts. The passion for deciphering ancient texts and interpreting iconographies also remains, with new linguistic and semiotic approaches that reveal previously unnoticed nuances. Universities and museums continue to be the pillars of research and dissemination, training new generations of specialists and promoting international dialogue. However, contemporary Egyptology faces significant challenges. The protection of archaeological sites against looting and destruction, exacerbated by regional conflicts and the illegal antiquities market, is a constant concern. The control and management of tourism, which, though vital to the Egyptian economy, can cause irreversible damage to fragile monuments, are also complex issues. Furthermore, there is a growing debate about the repatriation of artifacts to their countries of origin, with many collections in Western museums being subject to claims by countries like Egypt, which seek to reclaim their cultural heritage. The sustainability of archaeological research and the need for continuous funding in an uncertain global economic landscape also pose obstacles. Despite these challenges, the future of discovery in Egyptology is promising. The application of non-invasive technologies, such as ground-penetrating radar, GPR, magnetometry, and infrared thermography, allows archaeologists to identify underground structures and anomalies without the need for destructive excavations. DNA analysis and other biomolecular techniques continue to refine our knowledge of ancient populations, their diseases, diets, and migration patterns. Artificial intelligence and machine learning are being explored to analyze vast volumes of data from inscriptions and images, accelerating research and revealing hidden patterns. 3D digitization of artifacts and monuments not only aids in conservation, but also creates globally accessible digital libraries, democratizing access to knowledge and enabling new forms of interaction and study. Egypt still holds many secrets, and Egyptology, with its new tools and approaches, is more prepared than ever to unravel them, ensuring that the fascinating history of Tutankhamun and his civilization continues to be told for millennia. We have reached the end of our journey through the sands of time, following the footsteps of a king who, for over 3 millennia, rested in the silence of the Valley of the Kings, only to re-emerge and capture the imagination of the world. The story of Tutankhamun is, in its essence, a powerful meditation on immortality. Not just the immortality that the ancient Egyptians sought through their complex funerary rituals and their unwavering faith in the afterlife, but also the immortality that history itself sometimes bestows upon the most improbable characters. He was not a legendary conqueror or an empire builder in life, but his untouched tomb made him a beacon, illuminating a once obscure period of Egyptian civilization. Tutankhamun's legacy is multifaceted. He is the symbol of the new kingdom's wealth and art, a testament to the sophistication and skill of Egyptian artisans. He is also a window into the complexity of political and religious relations of an era, revealing the court intrigues and power struggles that followed Akhenaten's revolution. Through him, we better understand the frailties of human life, even for a pharaoh, and the intersections between health, genetics, and destiny. His story is a continuous invitation to research and discovery, showing that, however much we advance, the past still holds secrets to be revealed. But Tutankhamun's immortality resonates more deeply in our own existence. He invites us to reflect on the nature of the legacy we leave behind. The Egyptians, with their pyramids and tombs, sought a material eternity. Today, our pursuit of immortality might manifest in works of art, in scientific discoveries, in the transmission of knowledge, or in the marks we leave on the lives of those around us. Tutankhamun's story reminds us that time is the ultimate judge, and what endures is not always what seems grandest in its moment. The fascination with ancient Egypt, personified in Tutankhamun, is a reminder of the perennial human curiosity about the unknown, about mystery, and about the search for meaning in civilizations that, like our own, faced challenges and sought answers to life's great questions. The desert sands, which covered and preserved the king for millennia, are the same sands that are now being swept away to reveal new secrets, ensuring that the dialogue between the present and the past never ceases. The boy pharaoh is not just a historical figure. He is a golden thread connecting us to a millennia-old tapestry, an invitation to continue exploring the treasures of knowledge and to value the heritage bequeathed to us. His journey to eternity, though begun so long ago, continues to inspire and illuminate our own path. If the saga of Pharaoh Tutankhamun fascinated you and made you see the past through new eyes, please like this video and share it so more people can unravel these mysteries with us. And to continue this journey through time and not miss any of our upcoming documentaries, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Your support is crucial for us to bring you more epic stories like this one. Now we want to hear from you. What is the most valuable lesson Tutankhamun's story taught you? Leave your comment and join our community of past explorers.